Om Namo Narayana. Welcome back to our reading of Radhakrishna's text, Shastra Kakshusha. There we go. I have trouble pronouncing that word. Like most Sanskrit that I pronounce on this channel, as so many of you have called me out on, but I don't hear these words, and that's how I pick up a lot of my language skills. Having lived in Japan and Hungary for a while, it was always through listening, lots of reading, but then I can read stuff, but the sounds I if you say this word is like this, it doesn't work for me. Doesn't work for me at all. So as I said in the last video, I record this in February 2025 as Radha is in hospice with 4-stage pancreatic cancer, which I found out in between the last video and the earlier ones in this reading. If you're interested in his books, please send me a personal email. I'm happy to send you a PDF of his Vedic Universe series. Other books, I don't know, what we can find ways of getting you copies of them if you would like. It is a great honor for me to be able to read his stuff. And so here we go. This chapter is called Become a Spiritualist. Shastra describes the earth as being static and surrounded by water, with celestial bodies like the sun, moon, and Sushumna planetary system revolving around it. These celestial bodies are blown in a clockwise direction around the pole star by the Dakshinaavarta wind, and there are plenty of verses from Srimad Bhagavatam to support these statements. The independent entity that constantly moves within each zone or planetary system is the unbridled mind, which carries a person's assumed consciousness, and by default the physical body, moving it from place to place by quantum mechanical principles. Thus we have inertia, or the principle of gravity, as a derivative entropic condition acting on each independent entity, operating separately from the homogeneous whole, which is the Virat Rupa, or the universal body of the Lord as assumed separated parts. All these matters are explained by Lord Brahma and Srila Vasudeva, and after realizing these matters, we should accept them as they are. The mind's thoughts and associations with matter push it towards a higher state of awareness or pleasure, which are defined as two by the characteristics within the left and right hemispheres of the brain. The pursuit of developing the intellect allows neurotransmitters to offer a sense of happiness to our body via chemical releases. Searching for happiness externally, which is a higher state than that of boredom or misery, involves stimulating the senses of the body. Thus we have a feedback loop between the senses and the mind. Seeking material happiness is tainted by the mind's connection with the modes of nature and often leads people to perform actions detrimental to the soul's best interest. This is apparent in actions such as drug abuse, in which the search for pleasure has dire consequences. Actions rooted in ignorance reflect a person's inability to align his actions with the Lord, who in an impersonal sense is the sum total of the universe. Without considering the consequences, people often find their quest for happiness leading to the opposite result. This teaching on karma is presented by the sages, by Lord Krishna, and by Lord Buddha. Care for the people's livelihood is beyond the domain of science, yet science positions itself to lead people within a homogeneous universe, wherein the attending law states that every thought and action, being interconnected with the whole, has a corresponding reaction. The spiritualist is he who balances the opposing characteristics of duality, presented via the senses, to the left and right hemispheres of the brain, and then transposed to the brain rhythms and passed through the external and internal nadis to the mind, and eventually to the Brahma nadi and the soul, when in spiritual union. Foregoing his sense of happiness and development, the spiritualist chooses to work on behalf of the Lord, who is the pious soul. Seeing this act, piety is awarded, and the universe then lightens his load and offers degrees of perfection to the caring individual. The blessings of the demigods and Durga Devi, who work on behalf of the Lord, continue unto the devout servant, has no further inertia. Accordingly, the mind, which was suppressed in its velocity, now has reduced inertia, pressing it, and thus recovers its natural frequency and vibration until the persona is established in goodness, matches his frequency with light, and becomes free from personal desires. Dedicating his life to the Lord, he becomes one in quality with the Lord, and leaves for the spiritual world in the self-same body. This is explained nicely by Srila Sukadeva from the texts 18 to 33 of Chapter 2, Canto 2 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I can give an example of this as follows. Quote, Transcendentalists desire to avoid everything godless, for they know that supreme situation in which everything is related to the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Therefore, a pure devotee who is in absolute harmony with the Lord does not create perplexities, but worships the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment, taking them into his heart. The two paths, known as pravritti and nivritti, display a person's choices for advancing via attachment or detachment from matter. But in both cases, one must become a servant of the whole, who is the Lord. Transcendentalists are unrestricted in their movements in the material world and beyond, but the materialists can never move in such an unrestricted manner due to their self-centered preferences being inhomogeneous with the whole. The universe is divided into gross and subtle areas, and to enter the subtle region, one must shed the constraints of the material body. Concerning universal height, this region comes after the moon, the water sphere, which comes after the sun sphere. Srila Sukadeva gives the following information on this from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2. When such a mystic passes over the Milky Way by illuminating Susumna to reach the highest planet, Brahmaloka, he goes first to Vaishvanara, the planet of the deity of fire, wherein he becomes completely cleansed of all contaminations, and thereafter he still goes higher to the circle of Susumara to relate with Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. In this sloka, we find indication of the second dimension of the universe, which begins at Maharloka. This Susumara system is the time frame for humans, and above this is that of the demigods who inhabit a body of mind or pure light. Foolish physicists of Earth try to understand this region, but actually the only thing the providers of funds hope to attain is information to dominate the material energy via manipulating the subpotencies in the atomic realm. They are possibly searching for the creation of quantum computers, which can supplant currently their artificial intelligence machines. The demigods, who are billions of times more intelligent, will not allow people into their domain uninvited, and the yakshas will torment anyone's mind that enters this realm without qualification. Lord Krishna has explained the correct way to attain mystic abilities in Canto 11, and the divisions of time are expressed in Cantos 3 and 5. I have elaborated on these in my 3-book series entitled Harinama Rahasya and in Vyasadeva's Vedic Universe series. Explaining advancement through the universe, Srila Sukadeva gives the following information. He says from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, verses 29 to 30, After reaching Satyaloka, the devotee is specifically able to be incorporated fearlessly by the subtle body in an identity similar to that of the gross body, and one after another he gradually attains stages of existence from earthly to watery, fiery, glowing, and airy until he reaches the ethereal stage. The devotee, thus surpassing the gross and the subtle forms of coverings, enters the plane of egoism, and in that status he merges the material modes of nature in this point of neutralization, and thus reaches egoism in goodness. After this, all egoism is merged in the Mahat Tattva, and he reaches the point of pure self-realization. The above sloka explains how a person can advance in height through the universe, and other sections in Srimad Bhagavatam show how to transcend the earthly regions which contain 7 coverings. Understanding these things qualifies one to leave the earthly realm, bypass the heavenly realm, and enter the spiritual realm. This is not something I claim, rather it is propounded by the topmost angelic beings, and I have explained these matters in my series of books entitled Vasudeva's Vedic Universe. In their proud stance, modern science claims that the Vedas cannot teach anything about the physical universe. But in truth, it is they who know very little. It is only the purified soul who can attain the perfection of associating with God in complete bliss and in his natural state. This is eternal truth as taught by the purified saints, and it opposes the atheistic premise of the Pundrakas of science. Opposing the glorious path of the transcendentalists are the materialists who fight continuously with entropy acting as gravity. The materialists struggle with the modes results in a dulling of consciousness, where the assumed personal burden creates even greater inertia. Consequently, gravitational effects manifest as a restriction and slowing of the intellect and mind, effectuating in the mind being encased in a corresponding body and species. This information implies that developing God consciousness is the most important aspect to our lives. According to Shastra, Rudra oversees the phenomena of entropy. The fact that Rudra is an expansion of Shankarshana shows the importance of servitude over the desire to dominate as a self-centered entity. And thus ends this chapter. Previous line, this information implies that developing God consciousness is the most important aspect to our lives. Remember that line? That's the most important line he probably said in that entire chapter. Okay, thank you for joining me here. We have two more videos that'll be rounding out this book and then rolling on to some other interesting readings on this channel. Please subscribe, share, yeah, and if you'd like to reach out to me, mail is down below. You can also check out the live show on this channel duplicated on other avenues like BitChute, Rumble, and Spotify, and tons of podcast sites, because I know people don't necessarily always like one or the other. So just trying to help you out there and spread the word. So until next time, Jai Shri Krishna. Thank you for joining me on this journey with Radhakarana.